Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by cancer.But. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. It's so great to be with all of you today. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your content. And please be sure to follow us on social media at Breast Cancer Conversations. For those of you who tune in each week, it's great to have you back. I feel compelled to provide you with as much information, support, and resources as I can through our show, interviews, and my own personal experience with breast cancer. The interviews and connecting with all of you, our listeners and audience, is the fun part. But there is a lot of sweat and joy that come from the relentless hours of post-production and editing that we do each week to bring our podcast to life. My heart and soul could not be more passionate and committed each week to delivering inspiration, hope, and support. That's why I've decided to make the decision to partner with Podigy to help with the back end of editing. If you have a podcast or are thinking about starting one, I highly recommend them. They are super easy to work with, they provide great advice and customer support, and they offer our listeners 25% off your first month when you mention our podcast, Breast Cancer Conversations. We know cancer takes a village, and I'm glad to have Podigy part of our support team. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to give you guys some updates about what's going on at SBC. If you hop over to survivingbreastcancer.org, you will see we have a whole new section for members. I would like to invite you for this awesome opportunity. It's 100% free to sign up, join, and become a member. We're building out our virtual patient care platform. There are a variety of ways to engage, build out your profile, engage in discussion boards, questions, groups, etc. So please hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org, select for members, and join. Let me know what you think, and please provide feedback. We're always here in the beta phase of testing and giving updates and making recommendations. So we would love to hear from you. Okay, so let's dive right in. Welcome to the conversation. Yeah, it's so nice to finally chat with you. This is way long overdue.
Lovely, honestly. My name is Grace Charrier. I'm Nigerian, West African. I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm an activist in various fields. Before I got cancer, I was actually a peace ambassador at the UN. I was given that award for being one of the voices trying to stem the violence, religious issues that are going on in Nigeria. We have the fanaticism, the Boko Haram, which I'm sure you must have learned about and all that. So I was invited to several high table events with government to try and seek ways to kind of consolidate all these events that were spilling out from the seams. Fast forward, I was, even before then, for me to all that I do now is as a result of my background, because my dad was a diplomat here, even at the United Nations. My mom was a chartered secretary, public servant. So all these kind of their skills and I think exposure kind of prepared me for what I'm doing today. So seamlessly, so to speak. I was diagnosed with cancer in late 2016, and it wasn't the usual symptoms and all that. I didn't have any pain or whatever. What happened was that I usually do grassroots events for women in the underserved communities. And this time it had to do with fibroids, uterine fibroids. So I was in the villages, in the satellite towns, trying to let women know that if you have your period that is more than 5 days continuously and excessive bleeding and everything, you have to make sure to go see a health official. But you see, going to a health official, these women didn't have money because as you go, you have to pay a consultation fee, you have to buy drugs, you have to. So all that kind of narrowed them down. They didn't even have sanitary pads. And so a lot of times I was going with, for water and sanitation. myself and my team, I put together quite a good number of teams to be able to reach all these ladies and also bring their husbands on board. Because sometimes the women were not even telling their husbands exactly what was going on. It was a woman thing, so why bother the guys? You understand? But I was like trying to make sure that the husbands or the spouse, the significant partners saw that there was a problem, that these women were shy or to talk about or not just wanting to bother them because of what was considered a woman thing, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And it went well. Got the media, got the politicians to key into it and support us and everything. So after this, because it took me around the country and everything, one morning, I was about to come back to the States. And so one morning, I asked usually when I'm coming back, I get a lot of African gifts and everything for friends and foodstuffs and dried foodstuffs and all that. So I asked my nieces and nephews to go get me some things at the market, the usual things that I usually, and they left. And I said, okay, let me step into the bathroom and do my facial, relax, listen to some jazz and all that. Got into the bathroom and I remember running the shower, and that was the last thing I remembered. I woke up to find myself on the ground.
Oh, wow.
With my cousins and everybody screaming. They had poured water all over me and everything. So on falling, I hit my head on the toilet seat. I almost lost this eye. I almost lost my right eye. It was a horrible experience. So from there, straight to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital, the doctor said, your blood pressure is 170 over 110.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. And they wanted to keep me at the hospital. So I said, no, I have to go home and everything. And they wanted to give me blood pressure tablets. And I was going to have a stroke and all that. But knowing that I was going to come back to the United States, I didn't want to start taking drugs. I knew I would have to have something properly done. So fast forward, I came back to New York and saw my PCP and we ran several. And when I'm over 50, so when you're over 50, there's certain things that you have to do. So my PCP said, when was the last time you did a colonoscopy? I hadn't. When was the last time you did this? I hadn't. So having a mammogram didn't even come into the mix. It didn't even come into the mix. So I was doing all those tests. I had an echocardiogram since my BP was high, just to make sure that. But apparently this was happening because there was something else happening.
Now, have you had a mammogram prior to?
No,
nothing. Never.
I did have a mammogram years back when my cousin was doing something, but just had, I'm talking about about 7-8 years prior to, my issue. And for us, we weren't properly advised that it's not until you have pains or secretions and all that you're in the clear. You understand? So that was probably why, I was kind of, I would say, relaxed about the whole thing. I thought that there was something else happening. Couldn't have been my breast. My breasts, I didn't have any pain, nothing. So when this happened, I was walking out of his office one of the days that I went to get my results, which were in the clear. I had to do, of course, drinking a lot of fluids and all that for the colonoscopy, and then going through it and having the results sent. Everything was fine. I wouldn't say perfect. I was asked to eat more vegetables, but fine.
I think most of us get that recommendation.
So he now said, when was the last time you had a mammogram? And I said, honestly, I can't remember, some years back. So I said, immediately. And those mammograms, I had a mammogram twice, 3 times actually. And then he said no, and nothing was found. It was inconclusive. And then finally, he now said, no, we're going to have to send you for a biopsy because we don't want you going through a mammogram again because of the radiation and everything. So that was done. And that was one Sunday morning. when the doctor should have been at home, he had to call me to say, listen, you have to come here straight away. And that was when I got the results. And it was crazy. It was a mass.
So how did they discover the mass though? Like, how did they know to do a biopsy, I guess?
What they did was extract some tissue with a kind of syringe. I had to have a lot of those pricks, let's put it that way, from the area that they could see that there was a mass. They wanted to be sure because, you see, it was there on the screen, like the sonogram, and they could see that, oh, there was a mass. Okay, a lot of people have masses, but they're not malignant. They could be big cysts or something, large cysts.
Right.
So with the biopsy, they had to extract tissue and send it off. So as when they did that, I was now called back. My doctor asked me to go back, and they actually asked me to come back when the results were out. And that was when I was told that it was malignant and that it was cancer.
Wow. So previously, if I'm understanding this correctly, it sounds like you had mammograms previously, but they didn't notice any change. So therefore it was inconclusive, right?
Exactly.
And so because of this inconclusiveness, your one doctor then had the wherewithal to say, okay, well, there's still something there. Let's just test to make sure.
Yes.
Right? And then that's when it came back malignant.
Yes. And also because, you see, nobody likes to hear that a result is inconclusive. It's like doing exams and you want your results in school or lectures or whatever. And if the lecturer doesn't give you your results, they're like, hey, I worked hard for this. What's happening? Same thing. I couldn't sleep. I mean, it was worrisome because even for my doctor to say, I mean, this is worrisome. We need to know exactly what is happening. So you have to go for this biopsy because a lot of women I had met had told me, honestly, Grace, if I had heard inconclusive, I would have said, oh, that means that there's nothing really wrong.
Right. Exactly. You assume the best, right?
Yes, you assume the best. So, but I'm happy that he was on my case constantly to say, you have to go for a minimal invasive biopsy. It wouldn't hurt you, just be a bit uncomfortable because they're going to use a lot of pinpricks and all that to extract tissue. And then we will be able to know exactly what's going on. So that's what happened.
Wow. That sounds like a whirlwind. So you have this fall and then all of a sudden a series of tests.
A fall, a broken, I mean, my pictures after the fall I looked like something from one of these, maybe Star Trek or something, because I was blue-black all over. Sure. Yeah, it was crazy. We can laugh about it now, but then when you're going through all this, you're like, oh, okay, should I start putting my house in order? What is happening? Yeah.
Yes. So what happened after you found out the results of your biopsy? Did you call family members or let people know?
My daughter was with me. My daughter and I are together. And so when I got the call about the results
that infamous
and everything,
call.
that call, I didn't tell her. We were busy, like it was a Sunday morning. We just, come back from church and I love to listen to my classical music also. So I was like, and then she saw my phone ring, light up. And she said, oh, your phone is ringing and it's the doctor. And I'm like, the doctor. And then my heart, missed 10 beats.
Of course.
Because I was like, on a Sunday, he couldn't wait till a Monday. And for me, that was like, oh no. But I tried to stay calm. I said, okay. And she was like, well, call him back because it had rung off. And I said, yeah, I'll call him back. I'll call him back. So she was on me. And I didn't want her to be around me when I was getting that, whatever result it was at that time. So I waited for her. She was supposed to go out. I waited for her to go out first. And then I called him back. And then he said, Miss Grace, you have to come and see me right now. I'm in the office. So I said, right now. He said, yes, right now.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't tell my daughter anything until I went that afternoon and went to see him. And when I went to see him, he had already gotten some of his interns waiting for me. because he wasn't sure what my reaction would be.
Right.
You understand? So to like, oh, okay, we don't know what's going to happen when we tell this lady. So when I went into his office, there were two interns on either side of me.
Oh my goodness.
That was when I knew that this is not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's always...
So when I came back after I was told and everything, and I cried, first of all. In fact, I went into shock. I didn't cry. I cried afterwards when I came back home to tell my daughter. And she went berserk and all that. And I said, listen, calm down and all that. We'll see. I've been asked to see an oncologist, so I'll see an oncologist. And my insurance, the first oncologist I was referred to, they didn't take my insurance. So that kind of elevated my fears and really made me scared that, my interventions were going to be delayed as a matter of my insurance and all that. So my doctor, God bless him, had to look for, and sometimes when God wants to arrange something good for you, he arranges something good for you. And I happened to be put together with one of the best oncologists here in New York who accepted my insurance. And that was one thing off my chest that I think gave me hope, because I needed to have hope that something was going to be done.
Did that take a really long time to go from your initial recommendation and then having to work with your insurance company and finding an alternative?
It took like about 6 days. It wasn't that long, but to me it was like 6 months.
Oh, of course. Swear. That waiting period is the worst.
Yes, it was like 6 days. Yes, about a week. Let's say it was about a week, but back and forth with my PCP and my insurance, and we're now good to go. That was when the oncologist I was referred to, fantastic guy, who asked me to come in and see him, because we needed to know what stage it was at before we knew what treatment or whatever to follow.
Sure. Wow. I know. I remember my oncologist, I don't think it was an oncologist, but the secretary or someone called and wanted to bring me in Monday morning at 7:30 or 8 in the morning, before the clinic opened. Right. And they were doing this special, not a special favor. I don't mean it in that way, but just this is so important. We're going to squeeze you in as soon as we possibly can. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's really nice of them. But then I'm like, but that can't be a good thing. So
exactly.
Yeah, I completely understand. And to get that phone call on a Sunday and then to see your team immediately.
Did you have any issues before then? Or was it like mine? You didn't have any symptoms?
No, great question. So I had to advocate for getting a mammogram because I'm under 40. I'm still under 40, but I was under 40 when I was diagnosed at the age of 34. And luckily, I noticed some changes in my chest because at the time I was working out, I was lifting weights, I was getting in shape. And I literally noticed lifting weights in the mirror one day, one side was getting more developed than the other side. And I'm like, well, that's a little weird. I'm lifting weights on both sides and, I don't understand why some muscles are developing and others are not. And so I started to actually notice dimpling happening on my left side of my breast and was like, but you had to look for it, right? In certain positions when I moved, I was like, oh, there's a dimple. But now if I sit up straight, there's no dimple. I'm not sure if it was in my head or not in my head, but I was like, you could start to see some of these changes. So I was asking my primary care about it. There was no family history, my age, being under 40, there was no risk, a high risk. And again, the fact that you had to really look to see if there were physical changes. Again, it wasn't that obvious, but I checked myself in and said, if you don't think it's anything, that's great. Let's get a mammogram just to be sure. And so she ordered a diagnostic mammogram later, in a couple of weeks. I went for my very first mammogram and lo and behold, I went from mammogram to an ultrasound and a biopsy all in the same day.
Wow.
So then there was the waiting period to get the results back from the biopsy. But at that point too, you kind of had this feeling that, something was going on.
Yeah, it's not a nice experience at all.
No. And then to your point too, they wanted to know how far it spread, what was the staging. So immediately once we found out it was cancerous, there was a slew of tests that were being asked of me to go and get bone scans and CT scans and all sorts of MRIs just to know the extent to which the cancer could have potentially spread.
And the brain.
Exactly. Yes. So is that what happened to you too?
Yes, because I had to have an MRI, a CT scan, and from my skull to below my knee, just to make sure that everything was contained and hadn't spread. It was a stage 3.
Wow.
It was a stage 3. So after discovering that, thank God it hadn't spread to the liver, to other nearby organs or to the bones or whatever, touch wood. But my lymph nodes, of course, were compromised. So the lymph nodes, of course, were very, very enlarged.
Do you know how many lymph nodes were infected?
11.
11 came back positive?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, yes. Yes. In one spot.
Yes. Oh.
Yes, exactly. So that's exactly what happened.
So you had the full lymph node, like auxiliary dissection for your lymph node area?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I had that as well. And 3 came back positive for me.
Oh, 3.
So that classified me as stage 2B because of the number of lymph nodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's scary. Like once it goes into like 1 or 24,
that's it's rapid.
It is.
It's rapid and it metastasizes very rapidly. So that's what it could have been like the oncologist said, it could have been maybe 3 lymph nodes today. And then by another few days is about 3 times. You have about 9 because it's very, it was an aggressive sort.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Do you suffer from any like lymphedema or any?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, me too.
My right arm.
Me too. Oh, I hate it.
My right arm. Honestly, it's getting much better, my right arm. But I would tell you, for a year and a half, I was like a cow that was dragging herself everywhere. And even I had to wear clothes that were size bigger than my usual size because of the sleeves.
Oh, me too. I had to get a whole new set of blazers because I couldn't put my arm in.
I'm telling you, I couldn't put all my blazers. I had to I had to give out because, and then get usually a size 6. I was now wearing size 10 blazers.
Yes.
And then you'd see it be dangling here on the arm that's still normal and then very fitted.
Yes, I know. I feel
very uncomfortable.
Very self-conscious about it.
Very self-conscious. Up till today, I am still very. Usually, you want to just get up and go wear your clothes and everything, but then you have to think twice. Oh, okay. How am I going to do this now? Which of the clothes can I wear now?
Yes. And for our listeners too, who don't know what lymphedema is, my understanding of it, and please feel free to jump in with your experience, but lymphedema is a condition of one of the many side effects that we sign our lives away for when we sign these consent forms. But particularly when you have an axillary node dissection, you're disrupting the lymphatic system. You are literally taking out your lymph nodes and putting in what I visualize as like you have this bridge and you just like crumpled the bridge. And now your lymphatic fluid can no longer flow on its own throughout your body. So you get this buildup of fluid.
Absolutely. And then it can happen in the arm, it can happen in the legs, and all that. Where there's a buildup of fluids, that's the cause of lymphedema. And then how do we arrest the situation? We can't arrest it. We can only manage it. It would never go away. So a lot of people do use the sleeves or do massages or have acupuncture. There are a lot of ways, a lot of people try to treat it.
Yes. Are you doing any of those?
I massage a lot. I do a lot of massaging. I don't do the acupuncture thing or whatever. No, I just make sure to have movement all the time.
Yes, that's really important.
That's just lift stuff and exercise and all that. And it's getting better because it's not as swollen as it used to be. So at least we seem to be doing a good thing.
Yes, so we'll keep it up. I know I go through ebbs and flows. I don't know about you and lymphedema, but for me, there tends to be like spikes where there's more fluid buildup, and then there's weeks where it feels much more normal. So I've recently started seeing a lymphedema massage therapist to help with those lymphatic manual massages. And then she's taught me how to do wraps. They're not ace bandages, but they look like ace bandages where you can kind of wrap and create a compression around your arm. So that's supposed to help with the fluid as well. But we did a measurement and she was able to calculate the volume in my one arm compared to my other. And there was a 22% increase in volume in my lymphatic
22%
yes.
increase
yes.
in volume in your arm.
In my arm.
The fluids, right?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So on one hand,
what was the cause of that?
Because of the lymphedema. So there was just that much buildup of,
Wow, that was a lot.
I think so. And so on one hand, I'm glad I have this number because most people, they're not symmetrical from side to side, but there's a fluctuation of maybe 2 to 3%, not 22%. So when she told me 22%, on one hand, I was very happy because I was like, oh, good, I'm not going crazy. Like there's a reason my blazer doesn't fit, right? But then on the other hand, I'm like, wow, am I ever going to be able to decrease that number and get that to a much more manageable volume, right? Because as you said, once you are diagnosed with lymphedema, it's more of a management and there's no cure for it. So we're doing the wrapping, we're doing the massage. I'm hopeful, but at the same time too, it's just like, this is a real thing and I'm not losing my mind.
Not at all. Not at all. What do you think about the lymphedema sleeves?
I think they're important. I try and wear one almost every day. It honestly depends on the outfit that I want to wear. Some days I don't wear it if it just does not work with my sweaters or my blouses. But I do try and wear it, especially when I'm doing physical activity. So any weightlifting or exercise, cardio. Oh, I also wear it every time I travel on an airplane.
Yes, on an airplane. Exactly. Because of the pressure.
Yes, 100%. So my lymphedema therapist told me that the sleeve is, I don't want to use the word preventative, but she says, so because I'm already swollen, because I already have lymphedema, by wearing the sleeve, I'm preventing it from getting worse. But the sleeve alone isn't going to make the arm and the fluid smaller. I have to do the wrapping. I have to do the massage. I have to do the exercise. So it's more of just like a precaution that it doesn't get worse.
Yeah.
Did you hear something similar?
Yes. Oh, yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened to me. But it is uncomfortable, I swear. It is so uncomfortable.
Yes. Ugh.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, it's always nice to meet people who can empathize with what we are going through.
Oh, yes. It makes it, alleviates all the worries and all that. And we can actually communicate and understand. Because actually, thank God for your wonderful show and for bringing me on board. You guys have done so much. And being a platform, a voice, because a lot of people are going through it alone.
Oh, exactly.
It's like, okay, who do I talk to? That's why these platforms we create are very necessary.
Yes.
To try and give meaning to all the stuff we're going through. And we never talk about it most times because we don't want to bother people. But at least we have an outlet such as this to kind of voice out worries, fears, ask questions that probably normally you wouldn't even see on Google.
Oh, exactly. No, these are personal stories, personal experiences. I mean, we're not medical professionals, but we can provide our own personal experience of what's working for us.
Well, experts by experience. We've gone down the alley, we've been burned.
Now, Grace, tell me a little bit too. So you have your own platform and YouTube channel that you are promoting and sharing resources and information as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. I actually started it when I was in between. I had just finished radiation, actually. I started it for a number of things. I had met so many people along the way who were looking for go-tos. They were tired of the same old, looking up online, this, that. They were looking at a couple of other programs, trying to find meaning to what they were going through. They weren't really getting the kind of answers to the questions that they were asking. And they wanted something more what should I say, more real, because a lot of people that they were watching were making it very official. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so also another reason was I needed to kind of vent out, keep myself from being depressed. Because for 6, 8 months, you've been solo, you've been doing a lot of things yourself, you've been going through treatment, a lot had been happening to you. And I started it to try and take that self-pity away, and decided to create content and interview doctors, oncologists, other people that have been affected by cancer, caregivers, etc., etc., etc. And it's been doing well. It's been doing well. I'm happy with the feedback I get, the emails I receive, people wanting to come on the show.
Oh, that's amazing.
Tell their own experience. And yeah, I feel all the better for it. In fact, for me, I think it's a kind of healing process because it gives me a reason to be a voice for people and to share knowledge. I don't have the knowledge. I can only tell you what I've experienced, but at least I can gather information from other people and say, hey, come tell my audience what you've been through or what you think and all that. So yeah, it's been doing pretty well. It's Cancer Convos with Grace B, and is on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll be sure to link to your YouTube channel in the show notes and let our viewers know how to get in touch with you.
Absolutely.
So, and how often do you produce videos? Is it like weekly or monthly?
Every month.
Oh, every month. Okay.
Yes, every month. I did two, for the first time, I did 2 episodes in 1 month. And that was because it was Heart Health Month last month.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I needed to put that out because in recent weeks, I've lost 2 very good friends of mine. And that was due to silent heart attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, for women, we know it's asymptomatic. For the men, they know what they're going through, but I don't know why. For women, they never know that they're going to have a heart attack. They never even know what a heart attack is.
Mm-hmm.
So I interviewed a prominent cardiovascular specialist, disease specialist here in New York, who broke down. I'm very happy about that because a lot of people reached out to me and said, Grace, that episode was one of the best because it kind of broke down, or especially all that we women, and the feedback I got was actually from women. Because sometimes a woman is going through a heart attack. It's not necessarily chest pain. It could be a tummy ache. It could be a lot of things. It could be a headache. Yeah. And when he was breaking these things down, I'm like, oh my God, really? Is this true? So many people, he was even saying, high blood pressure doesn't bring about a heart attack. You understand? Other things bring about a heart attack, constriction, arrhythmia, so many things that if you don't pay attention to your body, these things come and go. They just come and go. So you think, oh, okay, I felt a bit of a flutter here, nothing. No, go check it out.
It's something, exactly. And this is such a great conversation to have. So we haven't actually talked much about heart health on Breast Cancer Conversations, but it is something that is incredibly important to let people know about, because if you're going through chemotherapy or radiation, as you mentioned, there are so many links between the treatments that we're going through to treat the cancer that have these long-term risks, especially for really all young women, like all of us, right? Like even if you're like in your 70s or 80s, like we still want to live very long, full lives. So I don't think the science is caught up with what happens. Everyone's quoting like the 5-year lifespan or like the 5-year survival rates, 10 years, 20 years. But really what happens 20 years from now when we're still alive and celebrating life every day, and now we have to deal with the risks of heart disease.
Heart disease as a result of cancer interventions.
Correct.
That's what he said. And I asked him on the show, I said, but why is this the case? Why is it that there's a correlation between cancer and the heart health? He said, because of especially adrenaline. Adrenaline is a very, very tough and toxic.
I was on that one.
Oh, yes. Me too. And that is terrible on the heart. They don't know why, but that's what it does.
Yeah, the red devil, I think everyone calls it.
The red devil. The Red
Yes.
Devil.
Oh.
Yeah, we had to go through that too.
And it's hard too. I think now coming out on the other side of going through active treatment, I'm now much more conscious and aware. And it's kind of that reflective piece too, is like, even though I went through all of my treatment, I was diagnosed also at the end of 2016, but 2017 has kind of been my year of treatment and surgery and radiation. And we're in 2020 right now, and I'm still coming to terms with everything that we went through. And I'm now starting to also see those longer term side effects start to creep up. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if I had like more time to think or process as opposed to just rushing right into that first oncology appointment on Sunday morning or Monday morning. Would I have had time to investigate alternatives? Like, there's nothing against Western medicine. I'm very happy with all of my choices, but even just to come to my own terms of what options are available and out there versus what I'm dealing with now, I feel trapped in, a postmenopausal elderly woman with
Oh, yes,
osteoporosis.
all of us.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that creeps up. That, your periods just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Stop for the time that I'm over 50, so my periods should stop. But it stopped for a while and then it came back.
Okay.
And I'm seeing my periods now. Can you imagine that?
Oh my gosh. Why is that? Did something change?
Who knows? I was telling my doctor and he was, okay, maybe you should have a baby. I'm like, let's be serious here. Are you for real?
Right. Oh
yeah, it's coming. So what the hell?
Yeah.
You might as well take advantage. So it was a kind of humor. But like you rightly said, yes, when you're rushing through treatment, you never really take time to stop. You want to just get everything going. And then, of course, just like me, 2016 was my year of diagnosis. The whole of 2017 was the year I was trying to get treated and healed. And then afterwards, I now saw that, oh, yes, it's these side effects they're talking about is sometimes I have pain in my bones. I still have those tingling sensations because we have our laptops and we can work, but even to write sometimes. So my doctor was saying you have to use a pen and come back with learning how to write. So it was like starting to write all over again because your feelings are being affected. You understand? All your motors are being affected. Your immune system too has been partially damaged. It's not a nice word, but let's put it that way. We're just being strong to try and say, oh no, nothing is happening to us. But a lot is going down. A lot is going down. But we just say, okay, if we could go through chemo and radiation and a surgery, then there's nothing we can't fight. So
right, exactly.
Let's fight whatever comes.
But
yeah,
you raise a really great point too that I want to linger on just a little bit because I find myself kind of pushing under the rug or under the pillow like these symptoms that I'm like, oh, okay, there's a little tingling and numbness, but like, maybe my hand just fell asleep. I'm almost in denial that it's because of the chemotherapy drugs that we're on. And we know that neuropathy is a longer term side effect. And someone told me once that I was going through what they call doctor fatigue because I am so sick of going to the hospital. I am so sick of follow-up appointments and talking to my doctors that the last thing that I want to do is tell them about a symptom that is going to trigger more and more tests.
More, exactly. I try to avoid it. I mean, last 2 weeks I was at the doctor's and I was just there looking at people who were starting their own treatment. And I'm like, oh my God, to go through this again, I almost got up and left. I didn't want to see my doctor, but I had to have my appointment. It's no. Yeah, it's not fatigue. It's the side effects for real. We go through that.
I think so. So it's important to like acknowledge what we're experiencing.
Yes.
Write it down and then, not to be shy to bring it up when you're ready to bring it up with your doctors because there could be help out there too. I know a lot of people I'm no longer on gabapentin, but I know a lot of people who are taking gabapentin to help with some of the neuropathy or different types of treatments if they're going through like anxiety or depression, et cetera. So, it's not to say that we have to suffer through it.
I didn't want to start putting more things into my body, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to. I was like, okay, there were drugs and medicines available for all sorts of things. But I just said, no, not for the neuropathy. No, that's okay. We already took Benadryl before. We already took all that. Let's see where this will go. And sometimes I think that also when we dwell on it, we kind of make it very, very, should I say real? Is that the right word?
Yeah, you
Because
bring it
now
to
you're
realization.
not, you're not, oh, yeah, I have the tingling and everything. But we had the tingling then. And this is like elongated up till now. So yeah, I didn't want to take any drugs and everything because when I told my doctor, I said, he said, your side effects, what's happening? I said, I'm still having the usual, my feet, still having the tingling, still feeling cold when I'm hot. And your body temperature is different. Your arms are 1 degree, your feet are another degree. Okay.
Oh my
No, it's
God.
true.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, heck, I'm just going to deal with it. I don't want any more medicines. Are you sure? Well, let's write CVS. I said no. If I feel cold, I'll dip my feet in warm water or something.
Exactly.
And just chill.
I know everyone asked me how I'm like managing. So my cancer was hormonal responsive. And so I'm on letrozole, which is one of the aromatase inhibitors to kind of prevent the cancer from coming back, knock on wood. And, the doctor's like, oh, so how are you doing with the hot flashes? There's stuff we can prescribe to help. But at this point, I'm like, I still get them. They drive me crazy, but I'm embracing them. Like, there's nothing else I can do. Like,
absolutely.
This is just now, like, I put on makeup, I get ready for work. And on the drive between my house and work, I am sweating and wiping all the makeup off of my face.
Oh, yes.
And it's just a thing. Like, it's just what I do now.
Yeah, it's normal. We embrace it.
Yes.
That's the right word. Embrace it that you said there. Yeah, there's nothing we can do. We're still on this side of the divide.
Exactly.
So we thank God for still keeping us here.
100%. Yes. So how are you doing now? So with stage 3, I know that's any stage is pretty scary. Was your cancer hormonally driven also?
Oh yeah. Stage 3 had to have my mastectomy, and also of course the lymph nodes were removed and everything because they couldn't save the breast. It had been compromised. But right now everything is okay. Yeah. Have to balance ourselves. So we got what do they call it now? One of these breast forms, to
okay.
kind of
like
a
prosthetic.
Okay. Like the lady said, no. I love the lady that gave it to me. She said, no, don't call it prosthetic. Call it a breast form.
Yes, please get the vernacular correct. Oh, God.
Yeah, call it a breast form. So I said, okay. I wanted to say prosthetic, but I was remembering her now. She was my first guest on my show. She's awesome.
Oh, awesome.
So that's what I use now and all that. Yeah, for balance, because of course, if you don't have that, you're not balanced, right?
Exactly. So you opted not to have reconstruction. You went to go.
No.
Yeah.
We've been through so much. For me, right. I know a lot of friends that went straight into reconstruction, but I'm like, what I've already been through, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to be in bed for another how many months to get healed. I don't want to. I feel that God is giving me another chance. I want to be out there. I want to do so many things. I don't want to be constrained by having, so for me, I'm like, hey, we'll just go with the tide.
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
Let's see what happens.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, this has been such an informative and lively conversation. I am so glad to spend this hour with you.
Oh, I'm so happy you invited me. I'm really, really happy. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And are you right in New York City, or where in New York are you?
Yes, I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay. Great. Yeah, we'll have to come down and visit and finally meet in person.
You must, honestly, Are you going to any conferences or whatever?
We were supposed to, actually. And now with the coronavirus, we're kind of rethinking what that strategy is going to look like. We're doing a lot more virtual meetups and virtual online webinars. But I will keep you posted if we end up traveling.
Please do, so we can meet up and all that. And your webinars as well. so that I can join.
Yes, absolutely. And likewise, if you're ever looking for another guest on your YouTube channel, like please keep me in mind.
I am going to invite you.
Yes.
I'm going to invite you. So get ready.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So
I'm going to have you on. You're doing such an amazing job, and I really feel honored that you invited me.
Yeah, these are good connections. I appreciate it. We can help each other.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
Heart.
Thank you.
And you too, dear.
Thank you all for tuning in and listening to today's episode. We release episodes each week, typically on Mondays. If you have a topic idea or would like to be a guest on our show, please contact me at laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. We love hearing from you. Please remember that the content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only, and because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in our podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our workplaces. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or corrections. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship. Until next time, keep on thriving.